Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the English Talk Community playlist. I'm your host, Julia, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. Whether you're walking to work, taking a break from your studies, or just relaxing, at home, I want to thank you for choosing to spend this time with us. This is a space where we explore real stories, practical tips, and personal reflections to help you become more confident in your English skills, and most importantly, feel like you're not alone on this journey. Today's episode is all about pronunciation. Yes, pronunciation. That one word that either makes you excited or a little nervous just by hearing it. We've all been there. Maybe you've studied grammar, learned new vocabulary, and even practiced speaking in front of the mirror. But when it comes to actually saying the words out loud, something doesn't quite feel right. You pause, hesitate, or maybe even avoid certain words altogether. Sound familiar? Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt embarrassed to speak because of your pronunciation? Have you ever avoided conversations because you thought your accent was too strong, or because you were afraid someone might not understand you? If you're nodding your head right now, let me tell you, you are not alone. Pronunciation is one of the most common challenges English learners face, and it's also one of the least talked about in a real human way. We often hear advice like, just practice more, or try to sound like a native speaker. But what does that really mean? And more importantly, is that even necessary? The truth is, pronunciation isn't about perfection. It's not about getting rid of your accent completely or sounding exactly like someone from New York or London or Sydney. It's about being understood. It's about communicating your ideas clearly and confidently. And most of all, it's about feeling comfortable using your voice in a new language. When we talk about mastering pronunciation, what we're really talking about is learning how to connect your mouth, your ears, and your brain in a new way. We're talking about training your muscles to move differently, paying attention to sounds you've never made before, and learning the rhythm and melody of English. It's kind of like learning a new instrument. You're not going to play a perfect song on your first try. But with time, with the right kind of practice, and with patience, you'll get there. In today's episode, we're going to explore this topic from a few different angles. We'll talk about why pronunciation matters, not just for communication, but also for confidence. We'll share some powerful stories from English learners just like you, people who faced real struggles with pronunciation and found ways to improve. And of course, I'll give you some practical, simple techniques that you can start using today, no matter what your level is. I want you to feel relaxed and open as you listen. This isn't about judging yourself or comparing your voice to someone else's. It's about learning, step by step, how to own your voice in English. And we're going to do it together, just like a community should. Let's start by thinking about what pronunciation actually is. Often people confuse pronunciation with accent, but they're not the same thing. Your accent is the natural influence your first language has on your English. It's the musical tone, the flavor of your voice that reflects where you're from. Your pronunciation, on the other hand, is the clarity with which you say individual sounds and words. So you can have a strong accent and still have excellent pronunciation. Or you can have almost no accent at all but still struggle to be understood because of unclear pronunciation. So let me ask you again. Have you ever felt embarrassed to speak because of your pronunciation? What was the situation? Were you in a classroom? At work? Maybe ordering food in a restaurant? Try to picture that moment. What were you trying to say? What did you think other people were thinking about you? Now I want you to think about this. What if the people you were speaking to weren't judging you at all? What if they were just trying to understand you? And what if all you needed in that moment was just a little more clarity, a slight adjustment in how you said a word or a different way to emphasize a syllable? It's amazing how small changes in pronunciation can make a big difference in communication. You don't need to change who you are. You don't need to lose your accent. You just need to be heard. And I'm here to help you with that. Throughout this episode, I'm going to share techniques that are not only practical, but also realistic. You don't need expensive courses or fancy apps to improve your pronunciation. You just need consistency, a little curiosity, and the willingness to try, even when it feels awkward at first. And yes, it will feel awkward at first. That's okay. Every new skill does. You'll also hear from people like Laura, David, and John, learners who had moments of frustration, self-doubt, and even shame, but who found their way forward. Their stories might sound a lot like yours, and I hope they'll inspire you to keep going. But before we dive into those stories and strategies, I want to set a tone for this episode. This is not about chasing perfection. This is not about impressing others. This is about you, about giving yourself permission to speak, to be heard, and to be proud of your progress, even if it's not perfect. So take a deep breath. Let go of that little voice in your head that says, your English isn't good enough. You're here, you're learning, and you're doing something powerful by simply choosing to improve. Now, let's get into it. Let's take a moment to talk about something that holds so many English learners back, not because they aren't capable, but because they believe they have to be perfect to speak. I want to tell you right now that perfection is not the goal, and it never has to be. When we put too much pressure on ourselves to sound exactly like a native speaker or to speak without any mistakes, we create unnecessary fear, and fear blocks progress. One of the most liberating truths in language learning is this: you do not need to be perfect to be understood. In fact, most native speakers don't speak perfectly. They make grammar mistakes. They pause, repeat themselves, change their minds mid-sentence, and even mispronounce words sometimes. That's just how language works. It's messy, spontaneous, and human. The goal when you speak English isn't to impress someone with your accent. It's to communicate your ideas clearly. That's it. If someone can understand what you're saying, even if your pronunciation is different or your sentence structure is simple, then you've succeeded. Clear communication always beats flawless pronunciation. I remember a story from one of our listeners, Jiwoo, born in Seoul. She had studied English for years, had a solid grasp of grammar, and built a strong vocabulary. Yet whenever she needed to speak English at work, especially during international meetings and presentations, she would freeze. She was deeply afraid of making pronunciation mistakes. Then one day, in a high-stakes video call with colleagues from the US and Europe, she had to present a report. Her delivery wasn't flawless. She stumbled over a few words, and her pronunciation wasn't perfect. But here's the thing. Everyone understood her. Her message got through. The meeting continued smoothly, and the discussion was productive. That experience was a turning point for Jiwoo. She realized she didn't have to chase perfection. She just needed to express herself clearly. This pressure to speak perfectly often stems from a fear of being judged. Many of us have faced situations where someone corrected our pronunciation or looked confused when we spoke. It can be discouraging, even embarrassing. But the truth is, most people aren't judging. They're just trying to follow what we're saying. And if our message is clear, even with an accent, they will understand. Let's put it into perspective. Imagine you're learning to play the piano. Would you expect to perform a complex classical piece flawlessly after just a few lessons? Of course not. You would begin with simpler melodies, miss notes, make mistakes. But the important thing is that you'd keep playing. Over time, your fingers would move more naturally, your confidence would grow, and your music would sound better. Speaking English works the same way. The goal isn't to mimic someone else's voice, it's to make your voice heard, with your own rhythm and style. Now let's take a moment to talk about accents. Accents are not problems to fix. They're part of your story. Your accent reflects your journey, your experiences, your culture. It's something to be proud of, not ashamed of. Think about how diverse English has become across the globe. There are countless varieties: Indian English, French accented English, Brazilian, Japanese, Korean, Russian, Nigerian. Each one adds flavor to the language, a different beat, a new sound. That's what makes English a living global language. It belongs to everyone. And here's something that might surprise you. Many influential people speak English with strong accents. CEOs who lead multinational companies, scientists who present groundbreaking research, actors who move audiences, world leaders who negotiate on the global stage. They do all of that with accents. And they are respected because what they say matters. They are valued for their ideas and their clarity, not for flawless pronunciation. Perfection doesn't earn respect. Communication does. So if you've been quiet because you're waiting until your pronunciation is perfect, I encourage you to challenge that idea. Speak now. Speak with what you have. Clarity is your goal. That means slowing down when necessary, pausing to collect your thoughts, using words you're comfortable with, and repeating when needed. These are not signs of weakness. They're signs of strong communication. Let me tell you about Tarek, another listener who moved from Egypt to Canada. During his first months, he barely spoke English. He was worried people would mock his accent or misunderstand him. But one day, during a meeting, a colleague asked him to share his opinion. Tarek hesitated, but he spoke. He took his time, chose simple words, and paused often. Still, his message was clear. His team understood him and even praised him for what he shared. That single moment gave him the courage to speak up more often. He realized that being perfect wasn't necessary. Being clear and sincere was, so how can you focus more on clarity and less on perfection in your learning? Start by simplifying your language. Speak in short, direct sentences. You don't need advanced grammar or big words to sound smart. What matters is that your listener understands. Also, slow down. Nervous learners often rush, making their speech harder to follow. When you slow down, you pronounce more clearly and give others time to process what you're saying. Another powerful tip: pay attention to how people respond. Are they nodding? Reacting naturally, asking questions? If yes, you're doing great. You're being understood. You can also build clarity by practicing with everyday phrases. Think about things you say all the time: greetings, polite requests, small talk. Translate those into English and rehearse them aloud. You don't need to sound fancy. Just be functional. Record yourself saying them and listen. Ask a friend to give feedback. Identify the spots where you stumble and give them a little extra practice. And repetition, yes, repetition, is incredibly effective. Choose a phrase like, "Can you help me with this?" and say it over and over, out loud, slowly, with focus. Soon, it won't feel strange anymore. It will feel like it belongs to you. That's when real progress happens, when words begin to feel like your own. At the end of the day, your job isn't to impress anyone with flawless speech. Your job is to connect, to build bridges with others through conversation, through ideas, through shared effort. That's what language is really. 4. And you're already on that path, just like Jiwoo, just like Tarek, just like so many others who chose to speak up even when they felt unsure. Keep going. Let me tell you about someone who might sound a little like you. Her name is Laura. She's a Brazilian teacher who has spent most of her career working in public schools in the south of Brazil. Laura has always loved English. She started learning it when she was a teenager, mostly through songs and movies. Later, she studied education and became an English teacher herself. But even though she could teach grammar rules and vocabulary with ease, she always carried a quiet insecurity about one particular part of her English: pronunciation. Laura had a dream. She wanted to participate in international education conferences, where teachers from around the world come together to share experiences, research, and innovations in the classroom. These conferences were usually in English, and many of them were online, making it easier to attend from Brazil. But every time she thought about submitting a presentation or even asking a question during the sessions, she would stop herself. Not because she didn't know what to say, but because she was afraid she wouldn't say it right. She worried about mispronouncing words, about freezing mid-sentence, or about people not understanding her. And although she was admired by her students and colleagues for her teaching skills, she felt like her English wasn't good enough for a global audience. In her own words, she said, "I knew the content, I had ideas I wanted to share, but my fear of pronouncing something wrong was louder than my desire to speak." One day, Laura decided something needed to change. She realized that waiting until she felt perfect was only delaying her dream. So instead of focusing on sounding like a native speaker, she decided to focus on being clear and confident with the English she already had. She chose a very specific goal: to work on the English sounds that were the hardest for her, one small step at a time. She started with the ith sound, which doesn't exist in Portuguese and is famously tricky for many learners. Think of words like think, through, thought, and 30. At first, it felt unnatural and awkward for her to push her tongue between her teeth to make the sound. She would laugh at herself in the mirror and feel a bit silly. But she didn't stop. Laura created a simple routine. Every morning after making her coffee, she would practice 5 short phrases out loud. Not long sentences, not tongue twisters, just clear, practical phrases using the sound she wanted to improve. For example, she'd say, "I think it's okay," or 30 minutes is enough, or "thank you for your help." She would repeat each one 5 times, focusing on clarity, not speed. Some days she'd whisper them, other days she'd say them with more energy, almost like she was rehearsing for a play. What made the difference for Laura wasn't just the repetition. It was the fact that she created a habit she could stick to. Just 5 phrases a day, that was all. No pressure to be perfect, no pressure to sound like someone else. Just daily practice, spoken out loud, with intention. Over time, something interesting started to happen. The fear began to shrink, not because she had eliminated every possible mistake, but because she had faced the fear head-on so many times that it lost its power. Her mouth started to move more naturally. Her ears became more tuned in to the sounds she was practicing. And perhaps, most importantly, her confidence grew. Laura told me about a moment that really showed her progress. It was during an online conference where she had the chance to join a breakout room discussion with other teachers from different countries. She had practiced some key phrases in advance, just in case she felt nervous. When it was her turn to speak, her heart was beating fast, but she remembered her morning routine. She spoke slowly, used the simple sentences she had repeated so many times, and kept her focus on clarity. When she finished sharing her thoughts, something amazing happened. Another teacher from Poland responded to her, not by correcting her pronunciation or questioning what she said, but by building on her idea and agreeing with her point. That moment was a breakthrough for Laura. She had been understood. She had contributed. And no one cared if her TE sound was perfect, because her message came through loud and clear. Since then, Laura has joined more conferences, even presenting. A short talk on creative writing activities for English learners. She still practices 5 phrases every morning, and she still sometimes gets nervous. But now she knows that clarity doesn't come from trying to eliminate every little flaw. It comes from preparation, practice, and trust in your own voice. Her story is such a powerful reminder that we often wait too long to speak. We wait until we feel ready, until we think we're good enough, until we've mastered every detail. But Laura's journey shows us that you don't need to wait. You can start today with what you have right where you are. If you've been struggling with certain English sounds, whether it's th, r, v, or something else, think about doing what Laura did. Choose just a few phrases. Make them simple. Make them meaningful to you. And say them every day, out loud, clearly. Repetition is one of the most powerful tools you have. Not only will your pronunciation improve, but your confidence will grow too. The sounds that once felt like obstacles will slowly become part of your voice. And just like Laura, you'll begin to realize that your voice, with all its uniqueness, is enough. You don't need to change who you are. You just need to give yourself permission to speak. If you're learning English as a second language, you've probably already come across some sounds that don't seem to cooperate. You hear them, you try to repeat them, and no matter how many times you practice, they still feel awkward or even frustrating. You're not alone. Many English sounds are difficult for learners from a wide range of language backgrounds. Today, we'll explore some of the most challenging ones, understand why they're tricky, and most importantly, figure out how you can practice them in a way that actually helps. Let's begin with one of the most famous challenges, the teach sound. You hear it in words like think, thanks, 30, and through. This sound is difficult because it doesn't exist in many languages. For example, it's not found in Japanese, Korean, Russian, Arabic, Mandarin, Turkish, and several others. To pronounce it correctly, you need to place your tongue gently between your teeth and push air out. For most learners, this movement is completely unfamiliar. Since it feels strange, learners often replace it with sounds that already exist in their native language. So, think might sound like sink or fink, and this might sound like dis, or even z's. This is a normal part of learning a new language. Your brain is trying to match unfamiliar sounds to familiar ones. But with some focused attention and practice, you can train your mouth to get it right. Here's one way to practice. Stand in front of a mirror and say the word think. Watch your tongue. It should come out just a little between your teeth. Then place your hand in front of your mouth. You should feel a soft stream of air when you pronounce the word. Don't rush. Take your time to pronounce the sound clearly and correctly. The more you repeat this with attention, the easier it becomes. Another sound that many learners find difficult is the English letter R. You'll find it in words like world, girl, first, and right. The English R is quite different from the R in many other languages. In Spanish and Italian, it's often rolled. In French, it's made in the throat. In Japanese, it's closer to an L sound. But in English, the tongue moves slightly back in the mouth, without touching the top, and the lips round just a little. Because of this unfamiliar position, learners often replace the English R with something that feels more natural. That's why world might sound like wad and girl might come out as ghoul. One good way to work on this is by breaking the word into smaller parts. Take the word world and start with the first syllable, which sounds like were. Focus on how your tongue moves. Then add the second part of the word. Keep practicing the blend until it starts to sound smoother. Let's talk about vowels now. One common issue is the short I sound, which appears in words like bit, ship, and sit. This sound is often confused with the long E sound found in beat or sheep, so someone might say sheep instead of ship, which changes the meaning entirely. Imagine someone saying, I saw a big sheep, when they meant to say, I saw a big ship. It would definitely be confusing. To fix this, you can use pairs of words that are almost the same except for one sound. For example, bit and beat, ship and sheep, live and leave. Say each word clearly and slowly. Pay attention to how your tongue moves and how your mouth feels. If you can, record yourself and compare it to a native speaker. The idea is to develop awareness. Once you can hear the difference, it becomes easier to make the correct sound. Now let's move to past tense verbs with ed endings, like in wanted, called, and liked. The challenge here is that the ending is not always pronounced the same way. In some words, it sounds like a soft letter D. In others, it sounds more like a soft letter T, and sometimes it adds a full syllable. For example, in wanted, yukai. Clearly hear the final part as a separate syllable. But in called or liked, the ending blends with the word and does not sound like called or like-ed. This can be tricky at first, but you don't need to memorize rules right away. Just focus on listening, watch videos, or listen to podcasts in English, and pay attention to how native speakers pronounce past tense verbs. Then, repeat after them. This technique is called shadowing, and it's very effective. Over time, your ear will start to recognize the patterns, and your pronunciation will sound more natural. Let's also talk about another vowel sound, one that shows up in words like man, can, and hand. This sound doesn't exist in many languages, so it's often replaced with a more open ah sound, like the one in father. But the English vowel here is tighter and a bit more nasal. Try stretching the sound when you say man. Your mouth should open wide, and you should feel the sound staying more toward the front of your mouth. Use word pairs like man and men to help train your ear. And finally, we have silent letters. English has a lot of words where certain letters are written but not spoken. Words like honest, knock, comb, and island are good examples. If you're used to a language where every letter is pronounced, this can be frustrating. But instead of trying to memorize all the exceptions, it's better to focus on listening. The more you hear how words are used in real conversations, the easier it becomes to match the spelling with the actual pronunciation. So, why do these sounds feel so difficult? It's all about habit. Your mouth, tongue, lips, and jaw are used to moving a certain way because of your first language. Learning English means training them to move differently. It's like learning a new sport or a new dance. At first, the movements feel unnatural. But the more you practice, the more your brain and muscles adapt. And remember this. Just because a sound feels hard now doesn't mean it always will. Each time you practice, even if you make mistakes, you're improving. You don't have to fix everything at once. Pick one sound, work on it for a few days, and then move on to the next. Step by step, your pronunciation will get clearer. And most importantly, people will understand you better. And that's the real goal. Let's explore one of my favorite pronunciation techniques. It's called shadowing. If you've never heard of it before, don't worry. I'm going to explain it clearly and walk you through how to do it, step by step. Shadowing is one of the most powerful tools for improving your English pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. It might feel a bit strange at first, but if you stick with it, you'll start to notice results faster than you expect. So, what exactly is shadowing? Imagine you're watching someone speak English and you're trying to become their echo. The idea is simple. You listen to a short phrase or sentence and you repeat it immediately after, trying to match the speaker's pronunciation, rhythm, and melody as closely as possible. The key here is immediately. You don't wait too long. You don't stop to analyze every word. You hear it and you speak it. That's why it's called shadowing. Like a shadow, you follow the speaker closely, almost as if you're copying them in real time. Now, why does this technique work so well? It's because it trains your mouth, your ears, and your brain at the same time. When you read silently, your brain is only seeing the language. When you listen without speaking, your ears are working, but your mouth is not. But with shadowing, all three parts are active. You're listening, speaking, and processing the language at once. This builds muscle memory for your mouth, helps you internalize natural patterns of speech, and improves your listening skills too. One of the biggest challenges English learners face is not just knowing what to say, but knowing how to say it the way native or fluent speakers do. English has its own rhythm. Some words are stressed, others are reduced. The melody rises and falls depending on the emotion, the purpose of the sentence, or even the speaker's attitude. Shadowing helps you absorb all of that, not just intellectually, but physically. You start to feel how the language flows through your body. Let's try a simple example together right now. I'll say a short sentence. I want you to repeat it out loud after me. Are you ready? Here's the sentence. I didn't see it coming. Now let's break that down. Say it with me. I didn't see it coming. Don't just say the words. Try to copy my tone, my rhythm, even the emotion in my voice. In natural speech, some sounds are connected. Didn't becomes didn't with the T softened. See it connects almost like see it, or even see it. And coming ends softly, without exaggerating the final G. Now repeat it again. I didn't see it coming. Try it a few times. Each time, listen carefully to how it sounds and compare it to your own version. That's the core of shadowing. You're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to get closer, little by little. The beauty of shadowing is that you can use it with almost anything: podcasts, movies, YouTube videos, or audiobooks. Just pick a voice you like and trust. It could be a newscaster, an actor, a teacher, or even me. Play a short clip, listen to a sentence, and repeat it right after. You don't need to understand every word immediately. The goal is to copy the sound, the melody, and the rhythm. You can start with just 1 minute a day. Really, 1 minute. Choose a short clip, maybe a conversation from your favorite series or a motivational video on YouTube. Play the first sentence. Pause. Repeat. Play it again. Repeat again. Listen carefully. Match the voice. Record yourself if possible. Then listen to your recording and compare it to the original. You'll start to hear the differences, and you'll start to adjust. A helpful tip is to use subtitles at first, especially if the speaker talks fast. Seeing the words helps connect the sounds with their spelling, especially for tricky combinations like wanna for want to or gonna for going to. But try not to depend on the text too much. Once you're comfortable, close your eyes and focus only on the sound. Trust your ears. Another great tip is to slow things down. Most audio and video platforms allow you to adjust the playback speed. Try listening at 0.75x speed. The speaker will sound a little slower, which gives you time to catch every word and follow along more easily. Once you feel more confident, return to normal speed. Over time, your brain will adjust and keep up naturally. Let's try another sentence together. This time, we'll focus on rhythm and stress. Listen first. She's been working all day. Repeat it after me. She's been working all day. Notice how the stress falls on working and day. The other words are said more quickly and lightly. That's natural English rhythm. It's not about saying every word clearly in isolation. It's about finding the music of the sentence. Repeat it again. She's been working all day. It might feel strange at first to copy someone so closely. You might even feel like you're pretending. But that's exactly the point. You are training your voice to perform in a new language, and the more you imitate, the more your brain adapts. Think about how children learn their first language. They don't start by reading grammar books. They listen, they copy, and through repetition, they master it. Shadowing is the adult version of that natural process. And don't worry about your accent. You don't need to erase your identity. The goal is not to sound like someone else, it's to speak clearly, naturally, and confidently. Shadowing helps you reach that point by giving you a daily opportunity to practice speaking real English, not just textbook English. Over time, the words will start to feel like they belong to you. You can also shadow in different moods or styles. Try copying a speaker who is excited, then one who is calm, one who speaks quickly, then one who speaks slowly. This variation helps you become more flexible and expressive in English. You'll learn how to sound curious, confident, surprised, or serious, all just by imitating how others speak. And remember, even native speakers use shadowing when learning a new language or improving their communication skills. Actors, public speakers, and even diplomats use this method. It's not just for beginners, it's a tool for anyone who wants to sound more fluent and natural. So if you're listening right now, I want you to try shadowing today. Choose a sentence you heard in this episode. Rewind it. Listen again. Pause. Repeat out loud. Feel how your mouth moves. Hear the melody. Let your voice follow mine, just like a shadow. Now let me tell you the story of David. His journey with English pronunciation was one of patience, creativity, and, believe it or not, laughter. David is originally from Argentina, and when he first started learning English, he felt stuck at the intermediate level. He understood grammar well, could write decent emails, and even passed a few speaking tests. But something was missing. His words sounded stiff, his rhythm was off, and he constantly felt unsure about how to pronounce things naturally. He told me once, "It's like I'm translating everything in my head and then saying it, but it doesn't sound like English." What changed everything for David wasn't a new textbook or an expensive course. It was a TV show, a comedy to be more specific. He had always loved humor, and one day he decided to start watching a popular American sitcom. At first, he watched it with subtitles in Spanish, just trying to enjoy the jokes. But after a few episodes, he switched the subtitles to English. That one change sparked a completely new way of learning. David started to notice the way characters delivered their lines, the rise and fall in their voices, the pauses for effect, the quick expressions, the contractions, and even the slang. He realized that pronunciation wasn't just about saying words correctly, it was about how those words were performed. There was energy in the speech, rhythm, music, intonation. Suddenly, English began to sound more alive. He developed his own little method. First, he would choose a short scene, maybe 30 seconds long. He would play it once just to enjoy it. Then, he'd play it again, reading the English subtitles and trying to catch every word. On the third round, he'd pause after each line and repeat the sentence out loud, imitating the actor's pronunciation, intonation, and emotion. It became a daily practice. He wasn't just watching anymore, he was shadowing, performing, learning. In context, one of his favorite episodes had a scene where a character says, "Could you be any more obvious?" It's a classic line from a very expressive character, and the way it was delivered caught David's attention. He played it over and over, trying to copy the exact stress and tone. The word B had a strong emphasis, and the sarcasm was all in the voice. David laughed every time he practiced it, but he was also training his ear and voice to work together. The more he practiced, the more confident he became. He began to recognize patterns, like how native speakers link words together. "What are you doing" becomes "what you doing," or "did you eat" becomes "did you eat." These reductions and contractions were everywhere in the shows, and instead of being confused by them, David started to embrace them. He wasn't just improving his pronunciation, he was learning how people actually speak. After a few months of this routine, David noticed something incredible. When he spoke English, people didn't ask him to repeat himself as often. His sentences flowed more naturally. His stress and rhythm sounded more like those of a fluent speaker. He was still, making mistakes here and there, but his message was clearer, and his confidence was rising fast. One day, he recorded himself repeating an entire scene from the show, playing both roles. He timed it, performed it with energy, and even sent it to a friend who was a native English speaker. The feedback? "You sound great. That was actually really fun to listen to." That small bit of encouragement pushed him even further. David's story shows us something very important. Learning doesn't always have to be formal. It doesn't have to be boring or technical. When you make learning enjoyable and personal, like David did with his favorite comedy series, you stay motivated, you stay curious. And because you're emotionally connected to what you're hearing and saying, your brain absorbs it better. He told me once that he started using the characters' voices as models for different situations. If he had to give a presentation in English, he'd think, how would this character say it? If he was nervous before a meeting, he'd imagine the confident delivery of someone from the show. It became a kind of acting exercise, but in the best way. He was learning not only the sounds of English, but also the feeling of English, and that's something we often forget. Pronunciation is not only about your tongue or lips, it's also about your mindset. When you're relaxed, engaged, and having fun, your pronunciation improves naturally. You're not just repeating sounds, you're communicating with emotion, intention, and presence. Watching TV shows, especially comedies, gave David a chance to step into the language, not just study it from the outside. Of course, it wasn't always easy. Some jokes didn't make sense at first. Some accents were hard to understand. And yes, there were moments of frustration. But David didn't give up. He made peace with not understanding everything immediately. He focused on the parts he could grasp and repeated those lines until they felt natural. Over time, he expanded his range, tried different shows, and even mimicked accents from various regions just for fun. He wasn't aiming for perfection. He was aiming for connection. To connect with the language, to enjoy the process, and to feel more natural when he spoke. And that made all the difference. So if you're listening to this and you enjoy watching series in English, try doing what David did. Start with a show you like. Pick a short scene, listen, read the subtitles. Pause and repeat the lines out loud. Don't worry about sounding perfect. Just try to match the tone, the emotion, and the rhythm. If you feel silly, that's okay. It means you're stepping outside your comfort zone, and that's where real progress begins. And remember, the characters you love can become your teachers. Their voices can guide your practice, their jokes can keep you motivated, and their lines, repeated out loud, can shape your pronunciation one phrase at a time. Let's talk about something a little more fun, but still incredibly powerful when it comes to improving your English pronunciation. Music. Yes, music. Songs in English are more than just entertainment. They are tools you can use to develop better pronunciation, listening skills, and even emotional connection to the language. And the best part is, you can use them anytime, anywhere. Whether you're commuting, cooking, relaxing, or just taking a break, music can become your pronunciation practice partner. I often recommend that learners start with slower songs, especially when they're beginning to train their pronunciation. When the rhythm is gentle and the lyrics are clear, it becomes much easier to hear how each word is pronounced, how the syllables flow together, and where the natural pauses and stresses are. Ballads, acoustic songs, or older classics often have this quality. They tend to be easier to follow, and they give your mouth a chance to keep up as you sing along. One of the first things I usually say is, don't just listen, sing. Even if you think your voice isn't great, it doesn't matter. You're not training to be a performer, you're training your pronunciation muscles. Singing helps you develop better control of your mouth, tongue, and vocal cords. You stretch your voice, experiment with sounds, and internalize how English feels in your body. Singing also makes pronunciation more memorable because melody and rhythm stick in your mind much longer than plain speech. Let's take an example. Think of a song like Let It Be by the Beatles. It's slow, melodic, and full of simple, clear words. If you listen to the chorus, let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be, you'll notice how the T in let often sounds soft or almost disappears. Native speakers don't usually say a hard T there. You can imitate that as you sing. Repeat it again and again until your mouth starts to do it naturally. That's how learning becomes effortless. You're not drilling grammar rules. You're feeling the flow of the language. Another great example is Someone Like You by Adele. It's emotional, expressive, and very articulate. She pronounces the words clearly but with feeling. That combination, clear pronunciation and emotional delivery, is ideal for practice. When you sing along, pay attention to how she stretches vowels, how she connects words, and how the rhythm carries the emotion. Songs like this give you a chance to practice real English, English that breathes and moves. When you find a song, you break it down. Don't just sing it once and move on. Play it several times. On the first listen, just enjoy it. Then, look up the lyrics and read them while listening again. Try to understand the meaning. After that, sing along slowly. Focus on the sounds, not just the melody. Identify any words or phrases that are difficult for you. Maybe it's a sound you don't have in your native language. Maybe it's a tricky combination like through the night or holding on. Repeat those parts again and again. Repetition is your friend. The more you repeat a line, the more it becomes a part of you. You can even isolate a phrase and turn it into a pronunciation exercise. Let's say you're listening to a song where the line is, I'm gonna find a way. You can practice that one line, I'm gonna find a way, I'm gonna find a way. Notice how going to becomes gonna. This is something textbooks might mention, but songs show you how it actually sounds. That's real-world English. It's also important to choose songs that use vocabulary you can understand. If a song is full of slang or very poetic language, it might be beautiful but not very useful at first. Look for songs that match your level. The goal is not to memorize complicated lyrics. You want to train your ear and mouth with words you can use in daily life. Once you feel more comfortable, you can gradually explore more complex songs. Pronunciation is not only about individual sounds, it's about rhythm, stress, and melody, and music brings all of those elements together in one place. In fact, English is a stress-timed language. That means some syllables are naturally emphasized while others are reduced. Music can help you feel those patterns without needing to study them consciously. You just sing them. You embody them, and here's a little tip. Record yourself. Pick a short part of a song, sing it, and record your voice. Then listen to the original again. Compare your version. Are the sounds matching? Are your vowels stretched the same way? Are your consonants too hard or too soft? This kind of self-feedback is incredibly powerful. It helps you identify small changes that can make your speech more natural. Another fun thing you can do is try karaoke. Many websites and apps offer instrumental versions of popular songs. You can read the lyrics on the screen and sing along. It's a great way to practice, without pressure. You're not being tested. You're just expressing yourself. And by singing out loud, you train your voice to move in English. That movement becomes more fluid over time, and suddenly, speaking becomes easier too. Some learners like to write the lyrics down by hand. This adds another layer of practice. As you write the words, you become more aware of their spelling and pronunciation. You can also underline the syllables you want to stress or mark the places where two words connect. It's a personal way of studying the song and making it your own. I had a student once who used to sing the same song every morning before class. It was part of her routine. She said it helped her wake up and feel confident in English. After a few weeks, we all noticed a difference in her speech. Her tone was smoother, her sentences flowed more naturally, and she even started using expressions from the lyrics in conversation. That's the power of music. It stays with you, and it shapes how you speak. So when you're looking for a new way to practice pronunciation, don't underestimate your playlist. English songs can be your daily warm-up, your vocal workout, your pronunciation coach. You just have to choose the right songs, pay attention to the sounds, and let your voice join in. Practice doesn't always have to be serious. Sometimes, the best practice comes from singing your heart out. One of the most powerful techniques you can use to improve your English pronunciation doesn't require any special tools or software. It's something incredibly simple, but surprisingly effective: recording yourself and listening to the playback. I know, it might feel a little strange at first. No one really enjoys hearing their own voice at the beginning. But trust me, this is one of the best ways to build awareness, correct mistakes, and develop the confidence to speak more clearly and naturally. Let's walk through how this works and why it's so valuable. When you're speaking, especially in a language you're learning, you're focused on so many things at once. Finding the right words, forming the sentence, trying to be understood. It's a lot. And because you're in the moment, it's hard to notice the little details in your own pronunciation. That's why listening to yourself afterward is such a game changer. It gives you distance. It allows you to become your own listener, your own coach. Start with something simple. Choose a short paragraph, a few sentences, or even just a list of phrases you want to practice. These could come from your textbook, a script, a song, or something you wrote yourself. The key is to choose content that's just a bit challenging. Not too easy, not too hard. Then, grab your phone or computer, open the voice recorder, and read the lines out loud at a natural pace. Don't rush, but don't try to sound perfect either. Just speak as you normally would. After you've recorded your voice, play it back and listen carefully. What do you notice? Are there words that sound unclear? Are there syllables that got lost or sounds that didn't come out right? Maybe you're stressing the wrong word in a sentence, or maybe your intonation is too flat. These are things that might go unnoticed while you're speaking, but when you hear them later, they become very obvious. And here's something important to remember. This is not about criticizing yourself. It's about observing with curiosity. Think of it like checking your reflection in the mirror when you're trying on a new outfit. You're just noticing what fits and what you might want to adjust. When you approach it with that mindset, recording becomes less about judgment and more about growth. A great way to make this technique even more effective is to record the same passage more than once. First, do a before version, your natural attempt. Then, listen to a native speaker reading the same text, if you can find one. You can use videos, podcasts, or apps that read text aloud. After hearing how it should sound, record yourself. Again, this time trying to match the pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. Then compare the two recordings, your original and your second try. You'll likely notice improvements immediately. This kind of practice is called deliberate imitation, and it's incredibly helpful because it targets specific patterns. If, for example, you tend to pronounce the thaf sound as a D, you'll hear that clearly in your playback. You can then repeat that word multiple times, slowly and with intention, until the correct sound feels more natural. Over time, those small corrections add up and your speech becomes clearer and more accurate. Recording also helps you notice patterns in your speech that you might not have realized were there. You might find that your voice drops too quickly at the end of every sentence, making you sound unsure. Or maybe you always emphasize the same word in a phrase, which can affect the meaning. These are subtle things, but they make a big difference in how you come across when you speak English. When you can hear them, you can start to change them. I had a student named Marcos who used this technique every morning for 3 months. He created a routine where he'd record himself reading a short text, then analyze it with a checklist. He'd listen for sounds like R, th, and V, because those were tricky for him. He'd also check his pacing, stress, and intonation. After identifying what needed work, he'd repeat those words or sentences and record again. The improvement was incredible. Not only did his pronunciation get better, but his confidence also grew. He started enjoying the process, and by the end of those 3 months, he was speaking with much more clarity and ease. One thing that makes this technique so powerful is that it puts you in control. You don't have to wait for a teacher or a class. You can do it anytime, anywhere. And the more you do it, the more in tune you become with the sound of English and the sound of your own voice speaking it. That awareness is a huge part of pronunciation mastery. It's also a great way to track your progress. Keep your old recordings. Label them with the date. After a few weeks or months, go back and listen to them. You'll hear just how far you've come. It's like keeping a fitness journal, but for your voice. Those old clips become evidence of your growth, and they can be a great source of motivation when you're feeling stuck. If you're nervous about speaking in real-life situations, maybe in meetings, interviews, or social settings, recording yourself can help you prepare. Practice what you want to say. Listen to how it sounds and make adjustments. This rehearsal gives you a chance to polish your delivery before you're in front of someone else. It's like having a personal rehearsal space, and it can reduce your anxiety significantly. And here's one more benefit. Recording helps you become more familiar with your own English identity. Everyone has their own unique way of speaking, shaped by their voice, accent, and experience. Listening to yourself helps you embrace that identity and shape it into something you feel proud of. It's not about copying someone else, it's about refining your own sound. So if you haven't tried it yet, I encourage you to give it a shot. Start small. Pick a few lines. Record. Listen, reflect, repeat. It might feel awkward at first, but with practice, it becomes a powerful habit. Your pronunciation will improve, your confidence will grow, and you'll gain a much deeper understanding of how you speak English. Let me tell you a story about someone who truly embraced the idea that mistakes are not the end of the road, but part of the journey. His name is John. When John first started learning English, he was just like many of you. He had studied grammar, memorized vocabulary, and even passed a few language tests. But when it came to actually speaking, something always held him back. He felt unsure. He was afraid of saying something wrong, of sounding silly or worse, being misunderstood. So for a long time, he avoided speaking entirely. But something changed when he made a decision to stop waiting for the perfect moment to speak and start practicing, even if it meant making mistakes. He told himself that he would rather sound awkward for a few months than stay silent for years. That shift in mindset made all the difference. One day, he took out his phone, opened the voice recorder, and simply started talking. Nothing too complicated, just a short paragraph about his weekend. He recorded it, saved the file, and didn't listen to it right away. In fact, he was a bit nervous to hear himself. But he decided to do it again the following week, and then again the week after that. By the end of the first month, John had 4 short recordings. Out of curiosity, he went back to listen to the first one, and he was shocked. Not because it was perfect, but because it was not as terrible as he had imagined. Sure, he mispronounced a few words. His rhythm was a bit off, but the message was clear. And compared to his latest recording, there was already a noticeable improvement. That was his light bulb moment. He realized that he was getting better, and not because he avoided mistakes, but because he allowed them to happen and learned from them. From that point on, John made it a weekly ritual. Every Sunday, he would pick a topic, anything from what he did that week to describing a movie he watched, and record himself speaking for about 2 or 3 minutes. Over time, he got more comfortable. He started experimenting with new vocabulary, tried different expressions, and even practiced intonation patterns he heard in English shows. Every few weeks, he would go back and compare his recent recording with an older one. And guess what? He could actually hear his progress. Of course, not every week was a victory. There were times when he listened to a new recording and cringed. He would say, "Oh no, why did I say it like that?" Or, "That word came out all wrong." But instead of getting discouraged, John did something really powerful. He laughed. He didn't take his mistakes as personal failures. He treated them like little bumps on the road, nothing more. He once told me, "If I can laugh at my mistakes, I take away their power. They don't scare me anymore." That mindset helped him stay consistent. Because he wasn't aiming for perfection, he didn't freeze up or delay his practice. He wasn't trying to sound like a native speaker overnight. He just wanted to be a little better each time. That attitude kept the pressure low and the motivation high. And it worked. One specific example I remember is when John was trying to master the difference between beach and bitch. A classic challenge, right? He had made that mistake during a recording, and when he played it back, he burst out laughing. Instead of being embarrassed, he repeated the sentence again, this time slowly, making sure to stretch the vowel sound in beach. He recorded it multiple times until he felt comfortable with the difference. That little mistake turned into a focused pronunciation drill, and the next time he used the word in a real conversation, he nailed it. John's story is a reminder that your recordings are not just practice, they're a timeline of your growth. They show where you started, where you struggled, and where you're improving. When you listen to yourself and notice a word that doesn't sound quite right, that's not a reason to feel bad. That's your opportunity to say, "Great, now I know what to fix." Without those recordings, John wouldn't have had that feedback. He would have kept making the same mistakes without even realizing it. And the truth is, John wasn't doing anything fancy. He didn't use expensive tools. He didn't hire a coach. He just used his phone, his voice, and a willingness to learn. He created his own feedback loop, and because he made it a habit, it became natural. Recording wasn't a big, scary task anymore. It was just something he did, like brushing his teeth or going for a walk. Over time, John also started using his recordings to practice specific sounds. For example, he had trouble with the ed endings in past tense verbs. Sometimes he'd say worked with 2 syllables when it should just be worked. So he would record phrases like, "I worked yesterday," "She watched a movie," "We finished early," and play them back to catch the mistakes. It wasn't about beating himself up. It was about adjusting and improving, little by little. What really made the difference, though, was his attitude. Because he gave himself permission to mess up, he took away the fear. He learned to separate his identity from his performance. He wasn't bad at English because he made a mistake. He was just someone who was learning, just like everyone else. I think John's journey speaks to something we often forget, that making mistakes out loud is a form of bravery. It means you're taking risks. It means you care enough to try. And every time you try, even if it doesn't come out right, you're building fluency, building comfort, building muscle memory. That's progress. Even when it feels small, it matters. So, if you've been hesitating to speak because you're afraid of not sounding right, think of John. Think of the laughter, the imperfect recordings, and the quiet confidence that comes from hearing your own improvement. Mistakes are not the opposite of progress, they are part of it. And with every word you speak, even the wrong ones, you're getting closer to where you want to be. One of the most surprising things for many English learners is how a small sound difference can completely change the meaning of a word. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. words that look or sound similar, but are actually very different in pronunciation and meaning. These little details might feel frustrating at first, but they're incredibly important when you want to be understood clearly. So today, let's take a closer look at some common pairs that often cause confusion and how you can train your ear and mouth to notice and pronounce them correctly. Let's start with one of the most famous examples: ship and sheep. They look almost the same when written, and for someone whose first language is Spanish, they might even feel like they sound similar. But here's the catch. Ship has a short I sound, like in sit or bit, while sheep has a long I sound, like in see or sleep. Try saying them slowly. First, ship, short and quick. Now sheep, longer and stretched. Listen to the difference. Ship, sheep. Can you hear it? The first one is a boat. The second one is an animal. So if you say, I saw a ship in the field, instead of, I saw a sheep in the field, people might get confused or think you're talking about a very strange farm. Another tricky pair is live and leave. These two words not only sound similar but also have very different meanings. Live with a short I is the verb we use to talk about where someone resides. For example, I live in Spain, en France. The other hand, leave with a long I sound means to go away from a place, like, I will leave the party at 9. If you mix these up, you might end up saying something like, I leave in Madrid, which could confuse someone who thinks you're talking about going away instead of staying. Now let's go deeper. Why are these small differences so challenging? One reason is that Spanish doesn't always distinguish between short and long vowels the same way English does. So when you hear bit and beat, it might feel like they're almost the same. But in English, vowel length and quality are key. Native speakers use these small differences to understand what you're saying, and when they're not clear, it can lead to misunderstandings. So what can you do to practice this? First, slow down and isolate the sound. Let's use ship and sheep again. Say ship and really focus on keeping the vowel short and relaxed. Then say sheep and stretch the vowel longer. You can exaggerate the sounds at first to help your mouth learn the difference. Try putting the words into simple sentences. The ship is big. The sheep is white. Repeat those slowly, then a little faster. The more you repeat with focus, the more your brain and muscles will get used to the correct patterns. Another good exercise is to record yourself saying these word pairs. You can create a list like ship and sheep, bit and beat, live and leave, sit and seat, fill and feel. Say each pair out loud, record it, and then listen carefully. Can you hear the difference? If not, go back and try again. And don't worry if it's not perfect right away. This is the kind of thing that gets better with time and attention. Let me give you more pairs that are often confused. Take full and fool. In full, the vowel is short, similar to the Spanish U in nulo. But fool has a longer, rounder sound. Full means something is not empty. Fool means a silly or unwise person. Imagine saying to someone, you are full, when you meant to say, you are a fool. That would be a very awkward compliment. Another pair is man and men. This is a tough one because the only difference is the vowel sound. Man has the A sound, like in cat, while men has the short E sound, like in pen. So if you say, there are many man in the room, instead of, there are many men, it will sound strange to a native speaker. Again, a small vowel change, but a big impact on meaning. Let's try bed and bad. This one confuses a lot of learners. Bed has a short E, and bad has that flatta sound. So when you're telling someone, I went to bed early, you don't want it to sound like, I went to bed early. The meaning completely shifts, and people might stop and ask what you meant. Something you can do to make these differences clearer is to create contrast drills. That means you repeat the two words back to back several times. Like this: ship, sheep, ship, sheep. Then try switching the order. Sheep, ship, sheep, ship. Doing this helps you train your ear to catch subtle differences and helps your mouth practice switching between similar but distinct sounds. You can also use a mirror when practicing. Watch how your mouth moves when you say ship compared to sheep. Notice that your lips stretch more for sheep. That kind of visual feedback helps reinforce good pronunciation habits. Let me give you another fun one. Cap and cup. In cap, you have the A vowel, like in cat. In cup, the vowel is more central and relaxed. If you say, I need a cap of coffee instead of cup of coffee, someone might hand you a hat instead of a drink. These little switches can turn a normal sentence into something confusing or funny, depending on the situation. One last pair for today: walk and work. This one is extra tricky because it's not just about vowels. Walk has a silent L, and the vowel sound is like the one in law. Work has the stressed sound, which doesn't really exist in Spanish, so it's easy to mix them up. I walk every morning. I work every morning. Different meanings, but if you say both like work, then the listener has to guess what you meant. Here's a challenge for you. After this episode, pick 5 pairs of similar words. Say them out loud. Record yourself. Put them into sentences. Use them in questions. For example, did you see the ship? Do you like sheep? Where do you live? When will you leave? Doing this regularly will sharpen your awareness of sound distinctions and help you become a clearer, more confident speaker. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being understood. These little sounds may seem small, but they can have a big impact. When you learn to hear and pronounce them clearly, your English becomes more precise, and people understand you more easily. So take your time with them, have fun with the practice, and trust the process. You're improving with every word. One of the most underrated but incredibly effective techniques for improving pronunciation is something very simple: using a mirror. Yes, just you, your voice, and a mirror. It might sound too basic to make a real difference, but I promise it can completely change how aware you are of your pronunciation and how you physically produce English sounds. This technique is all about awareness, about watching your mouth and face as you speak so you can understand and adjust how sounds are made. And it's especially helpful for sounds that don't exist in your native language or feel unnatural at first. When you're speaking your native language, you don't usually think about what your lips, tongue, or jaw are doing. Everything happens automatically. But when you're learning English, your muscles are still learning how to move in new ways. And that's why a mirror can be a game changer. When you speak in front of a mirror, you start to notice the shapes your mouth makes, and that awareness can help you correct mistakes you didn't even know you were making. Let's start with an example. One of the most difficult sounds for Portuguese speakers is the th sound, like in think or this. When you say think, your tongue needs to gently come out between your teeth, just for a moment. But many learners feel shy or unsure about this movement and end up saying sink or fink instead. Now imagine you're in front of a mirror. You say the word slowly, think. You can see if your tongue is visible. You can check if your mouth is too closed or if you're keeping your tongue behind your teeth. With practice, the visual feedback from the mirror helps you adjust and train your muscles to move correctly. The same idea applies to the R sound in words like red or world. This R sound in English is very different from the Portuguese R. In English, the tongue pulls back slightly in the mouth and doesn't touch the roof, which can feel strange. But when you say red or right in front of a mirror, you start to see what your lips are doing, how they round slightly, how your jaw moves. You can compare it to videos or even to native speakers if you watch their mouth movements closely. Using a mirror also helps you build coordination. At first, it might feel awkward to focus so much on how you look while speaking. But over time, it becomes a powerful form of self-correction. You're giving yourself live feedback. You can pause, repeat a word, try again, and literally see the difference. You can even turn it into a daily habit. Just 5 or 10 minutes a day, standing in front of a mirror, practicing words, phrases, or tongue twisters that challenge your pronunciation. You'll start to feel more control over your voice and mouth, and that leads to more confidence. Let's try a short practice together. Find a mirror nearby, or imagine one if you're not close to one right now. Say the word 3. Now slow it down. Re. Is your tongue coming out just a little between your teeth? Are you blowing air gently? Good. Now try there. Same position for the tongue, but now with a vibration. There. Watch your mouth as you say each word. Repeat a few times, and notice how the sound changes depending on your tongue and lip position. Another great way to use this technique is with minimal pairs, those pairs of words we talked about earlier that only differ by one sound. Try saying ship and sheep while watching your lips. Do you notice how sheep makes your lips stretch more? Or say bat and bet. Does your jaw open a bit more for one than the other? These little visual cues help you internalize the correct position for each vowel or consonant. The mirror technique is also great for intonation and rhythm. Sometimes pronunciation problems aren't about individual sounds, they're about the overall melody of your sentence. In English, we use rising and falling tones to express meaning and emotion. You can use the mirror to exaggerate your intonation and facial expressions. This not only improves your pronunciation, but also your expressiveness. So if you're saying, "Are you coming with us?" you can see how your eyebrows lift. Your voice rises at the end, and your mouth opens differently than in a statement like, "He is coming with us." You can also practice entire dialogues or short monologues in front of the mirror. Pick a scene from a movie or a podcast episode and repeat the lines while watching yourself. Are you speaking clearly? Are you opening your mouth enough? Are you pausing at the right places? This kind of practice helps you develop not just pronunciation, but fluency and natural flow. Let me tell you about one of our listeners who made big progress using this method. Her name is Marcella. She was very self-conscious about her accent and avoided speaking English in front of others. But she decided to try this mirror exercise every morning after brushing her teeth. At first, she felt silly, but she noticed something interesting. She was becoming more aware of how her sounds were formed. She began to catch small errors, like mispronouncing walk as walk or saying tree instead of three. Just by watching her own mouth and correcting herself in real time, her pronunciation started to improve. And more importantly, she felt more confident to speak in front of others. The mirror doesn't judge you. It's a safe space to practice, to fail, to try again. It's a tool that's always available to you. And the more you use it, the more control you gain over how you sound. It's not about removing your accent. It's about making your speech clearer, more understandable, and more intentional. The mirror helps you become your own pronunciation coach. You can even combine the mirror with other techniques we've talked about. For example, do some shadowing while watching yourself. Repeat a line from a movie, copy the rhythm, and watch your lips move in the mirror. Or read the lyrics of a song, slowly and clearly, checking your mouth position for each word. These small steps, done regularly, build a strong foundation. Many actors and public speakers use mirrors to prepare their speech and practice pronunciation. So why not language learners too? It's free, it's simple, and it works. You'll notice things you can't feel just by listening. Sometimes your ear isn't trained enough yet to hear what's wrong, but your eyes can tell you. That awareness speeds up your progress. If you're feeling stuck with a particular sound or phrase, go to the mirror. Take a deep breath. Slow it down. Watch yourself. Adjust. Try again. You might be surprised how much progress you can make just by seeing how your mouth moves. When most people think about pronunciation, they usually focus on individual sounds, how to say the "thes" correctly, or how to distinguish between ship and sheep, and that's important. But what many learners overlook is that pronunciation is not just about the sounds. It's also about how you say the words, your intonation, your rhythm, your pauses. These elements are what make your speech sound natural, alive, and easy to understand. You can pronounce every word perfectly, but if your rhythm is flat and your intonation is monotone, your English might still sound strange or robotic to native speakers. So today, let's take a deeper look at the music of English. Because yes, English has its own rhythm and melody, and once you start to hear it, you can start to copy it. This is what gives your speech emotion, meaning, and connection. It's how you show whether you're excited, confused, asking a question, or making a strong statement. And when your intonation matches your message, your communication becomes much more powerful. Let's begin with intonation. Intonation refers to the rise and fall of your voice as you speak. In English, we often go up at the end of a question and down at the end of a statement. For example, listen to these two sentences. You're coming with us. Now say it again, but this time as a question. You're coming with us? Hear the difference? The first one ends with a fall. It's a statement. The second one rises at the end. It's a question. The words are exactly the same, but the meaning changes completely because of the intonation. This happens all the time in real-life conversations. If your intonation doesn't match your intention, the listener might feel confused. That's why practicing intonation is just as important as practicing the words themselves. And the good news is, you can train your ear to hear these patterns and start copying them. Now let's talk about rhythm. English is a stress-timed language. That means some words are said more strongly, while others are said more quickly or softly. In each sentence, some syllables are stressed and others are reduced. This creates a kind of beat, like music. For example, in the sentence, I want to go to the store, the main stress falls on want, go, and store. The words to and the are said more quickly and with less emphasis. It sounds like this. I want to go to the store. If you try to give equal time and stress to every word, like, I want to go to the store, it sounds unnatural and robotic. To feel this rhythm, try clapping along or tapping your hand on the table as you say a sentence. You'll notice that stressed syllables naturally create a beat. Learning where to place the stress helps you blend in with native speakers and also makes your English easier to follow. Another key part of natural pronunciation is knowing when to pause. In English, we don't just speak in one long, continuous line. We break our sentences into thought groups, and we pause at natural places, usually before a new idea or important word. This makes your speech clearer and more pleasant to listen to. For example, listen to this sentence. When I got to the airport, I realized I had forgotten my passport. You'll notice a short pause after airport, because that's where the thought changes. Without the pause, the sentence becomes harder to process. Let me show you how all of this comes together in a short dialogue. First, I'll read the lines in a flat, monotone way, without any real rhythm or intonation. Here we go. A. Are you going to the party tonight? B. Yes, I am. A. I heard it's going to be fun. B. I hope so. Now listen to the same dialogue again, but this time with natural rhythm and intonation. A. Are you going to the party tonight? B. Yes, I am. A. I heard it's going to be fun. B. I hope so. Do you hear the difference? The second version sounds alive, friendly, and real. The questions rise at the end. The important words are stressed. The tone rises and falls with emotion. It's not just what they're saying, it's how they're saying it. And this is what makes spoken English so engaging. Practicing this can be fun. One exercise you can try is to take a short scene from a movie or TV show and repeat it exactly as the characters do. Don't just focus on the words. Focus on the melody, the energy, the emotion. Pause the scene, say the line, and then play it again to compare. Try to match their tone, their rhythm, their pauses. You'll feel like you're acting, and in a way you are. You're learning to play with the music of English. You can also try recording your own voice while reading a short paragraph. Listen to the recording and ask yourself, does it sound natural? Are there parts that feel too flat or rushed? Then try it again, this time adding more emotion, changing your pitch, and stressing the key words. You'll be amazed at how much difference it makes. Another tip is to use arrows when reading to guide your intonation. For example, when you see a question, draw a little arrow going up at the end. For statements, draw an arrow going down. For lists, go up, up, and then down on the last item. I bought apples, oranges, and bananas. This visual technique can help you build muscle memory for intonation. Many learners worry about speaking with a strong accent, but in reality, what often creates misunderstandings is not the accent itself. It's a lack of rhythm or incorrect intonation. If your tone doesn't match your meaning, or if you stress the wrong syllables, it becomes harder for the listener to follow. So instead of chasing a perfect accent, focus on making your speech sound natural and expressive. That's what really helps you connect with others. And don't be afraid to exaggerate at first. When you're learning something new, it helps to go big. If you're practicing rising intonation for questions, make it really obvious. If you're practicing stress, hit those key words with extra energy. Over time, your brain and body will adjust, and your speech will naturally balance out. You can also learn a lot by listening closely to native speakers. Try watching YouTube videos, podcasts, or even news clips, and pay attention to how the speaker's voice moves. Where do they go up? Where do they slow down? When do they pause? Listening with this level of attention trains your ear and helps you copy the same patterns when you speak. The bottom line is this: pronunciation isn't only about the mouth, it's also about the music. When your voice has rhythm, emotion, and melody, your English comes alive. And the best part is, anyone can learn this. It's not about being perfect. It's about being clear, expressive, and easy to understand. And you already have everything. You need to begin. Your voice, your ears, and your willingness to play with sound. That's where it starts. Let me share with you the story of Hiroshi. Hiroshi was born and raised in Tokyo, Japan. Like many learners of English, he started studying the language in school at a very young age. He learned vocabulary, grammar, and even got quite good at reading and writing. But speaking? That was a different story. Every time he tried to speak in English, he felt stuck. He was nervous, he hesitated a lot, and when he finally spoke, he could feel the weight of his accent. People often asked him to repeat. Some corrected him mid-sentence. And worst of all, he felt like his ideas were being ignored. Not because they weren't valuable, but because his delivery didn't match the confidence and clarity he had in his native language. Hiroshi's accent was strong, and he knew it. Japanese is a very different language from English, especially in terms of rhythm and sound. English uses a stress-timed rhythm with reduced syllables and a lot of intonation shifts. Japanese, in contrast, is syllable-timed and much flatter in tone. So when Hiroshi spoke English, he would often stress every word equally, and his pitch didn't rise or fall in ways that native English speakers were used to hearing. The result? His English sounded robotic, slow, and hard to follow, even though his grammar was correct. For a while, Hiroshi thought the only solution was to get rid of his accent. He started watching pronunciation videos, practicing isolated sounds like the R in red and the L in love over and over again. He bought a mirror, he repeated words into a voice recorder, and he tried to mimic native speakers' mouths. But even after months of effort, he still didn't feel natural. His speech was clearer, yes, but something still wasn't quite right. He still didn't sound confident. He still didn't feel understood. And worst of all, he still avoided speaking in meetings or joining casual conversations with his international colleagues. Then, something changed. One day, Hiroshi was watching a TED Talk by a non-native speaker. The speaker had a noticeable accent, but he was expressive. He spoke with energy, and the rhythm of his voice made the ideas easy to follow. People in ER. The audience laughed, nodded, and listened closely. Hiroshi realized something in that moment. It wasn't the accent that mattered. It was the delivery. The intonation, the pacing, the pauses. That was what made people pay attention. That was what made English sound fluent, so Hiroshi made a decision. He would stop obsessing over getting rid of his accent and start focusing on becoming a better communicator. He began by listening carefully to native speakers, not just what they were saying, but how they were saying it. He noticed how they emphasized key words, how their pitch changed during questions, how they used pauses for effect. He listened to interviews, podcasts, and even comedians. He repeated sentences out loud, trying to match the rhythm and intonation exactly. At first, it felt awkward. He wasn't used to letting his voice rise and fall like that. But little by little, something began to shift. Instead of sounding flat and robotic, his sentences started to come alive. When he said, "Really? I didn't know that," he let his voice rise with surprise. When he said, "I think we should consider a different option," he lowered his tone at the end to sound more assertive. The words were the same, but now they carried emotion and intention. He was no longer just speaking English, he was communicating. One of Hiroshi's favorite exercises became reading short stories out loud. Not just reading them, but performing them. He would take a paragraph, mark the stressed words, underline key phrases, and add arrows for pitch movement. He would practice reading it again and again, recording his voice and listening back. And slowly, he started to notice a difference. Not just in his voice, but in how people responded to him. His co-workers stopped asking him to repeat. They started replying naturally. Conversations flowed more easily. Even in professional situations, Hiroshi saw changes. During one business presentation, he used all the tools he had practiced: clear stress, intentional pauses, rising and falling intonation. After the meeting, a colleague came up to him and said, "I really liked how you spoke. Your message was so clear." That was a moment Hiroshi would never forget. It wasn't that his accent had disappeared, it hadn't. But now it didn't get in the way. It didn't define him. It didn't block the connection between his thoughts and the people listening. What made the biggest difference for Hiroshi was the realization that fluency is not about sounding American or British or Australian. It's about being understood. It's about making your message land. Once he accepted his accent as part of who he was and focused on rhythm and intonation instead of perfection, everything changed. He still practiced pronunciation, of course, but now it was part of a bigger picture. A picture that included body language, energy, and connection. Another thing Hiroshi started doing was imitating actors. He would choose a scene from a movie or a TV show, watch it carefully, and repeat the lines along with the actor, trying to match the emotion, the speed, and the pauses. This technique, often called shadowing, helped him improve not just pronunciation, but fluency and confidence. He didn't worry if his version wasn't perfect. He focused on feeling the rhythm of real spoken English. With time, Hiroshi began to speak more freely. He joined English conversation clubs online, where he could chat with people from around the world. He gave feedback and shared ideas. People listened. They didn't interrupt. They didn't correct him all the time. They engaged. His accent was still there, yes, but it no longer felt like a wall. It was just a part of how he spoke, like a signature. And more importantly, he was finally able to share who he was, in English. If you're someone who feels limited by your accent, remember Hiroshi's story. An accent is not a mistake. It's a sign of your history, your identity, and your courage to speak a second language. What matters more is whether your message is reaching the listener. And the best way to make that happen is through clarity, rhythm, and emotional expression. That's what Hiroshi discovered, and it's something you can discover too. Today, I want to share with you a pronunciation technique that's simple, flexible, and incredibly effective. Practicing with keywords. I call this the keyword pronunciation method, and it works especially well if you feel overwhelmed by all the sounds in English and don't know where to start. Instead of trying to fix your pronunciation all at once, you just focus on a small, manageable group of words every week, words you actually use in real conversations. Let's break it down. Every week, you choose between 5 and 10 common English words, just 5 or 10. These should be words that are part of your daily life, words you're likely to say often. They could be things like coffee, really, always, because, today, tired, busy, email, morning, or friend. You decide based on what you talk about during your week. The goal here is not to sound perfect. The goal is to get comfortable, confident, and clear when using these specific words. So why does this technique work? Because pronunciation improves through repetition, but not just any repetition. Focused, intentional repetition is what helps you train your mouth, your ears, and your brain to produce sounds more accurately. When you work with a small set of words, your mind stays focused. You're not jumping from one thing to another. You're giving yourself the space to listen closely, notice the details, and make small adjustments. Over time, these small changes add up and become part of your natural speaking rhythm. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say this week, you decide to work on the following 7 words: morning, coffee, really, busy, email, today, and friend. These are very typical in daily conversations, right? You might say things like, "This morning was really busy," or "I need to send an email to a friend today." So you don't just practice the words by themselves. You also practice them inside short, realistic phrases. Take the word really. Many learners pronounce it with too much stress or break it into 2 clear syllables, really. But in natural speech, native speakers often pronounce it more like really or really, depending on the accent. Try saying, "I'm really tired." Then try, "She's really nice." Listen carefully to how the re part becomes soft and quick. Record yourself. Say the same sentence 5 times, each time paying attention to how your mouth moves and how the word blends with the others. Now look at the word email. This one can be tricky because of the E sound and the L at the end. Some learners say it too fast and the second syllable disappears. Others make it too flat. Instead, break it down. Email. Say it slowly. Then use it in context. "I have to check my email." "Did you get my email?" Repeat it until it feels natural. Another example is busy. Many learners say boozy or buzzy because of spelling confusion or influence from their first language. But the correct pronunciation is biz-e. The U is actually pronounced like a short I sound. Try, "I'm busy today." "He's always busy in the morning." Speak slowly, then build up to normal speed. When you do this every day, even for just 10 minutes, you'll start to notice improvement. Choose one of your keywords each morning. Say it out loud. Use it in 2 or 3 short sentences. Repeat those sentences several times, experimenting with different speeds and levels of emotion. For example, try saying, "Today is busy," in a tired voice, then in a happy voice, then in a rushed voice. This helps your mouth become more flexible and teaches you to control your pronunciation in different situations. Another thing that makes this technique powerful is the sense of achievement it gives you. When you focus on just a few words, you can actually measure your progress. You can hear yourself getting better. You might start the week struggling with coffee, maybe saying kofi or coffee, but by the end of the week, you're saying it naturally. "I need a coffee. Let's grab a coffee later." And you feel it. That moment when the word comes out smoothly and confidently. It's a small win, but it builds motivation. I remember one listener who wrote to us about her experience with this technique. Her name is Carla, and she works at a company where she often has to speak English in short meetings. She told me that before using this method, she would freeze up when speaking, afraid of mispronouncing common words like schedule or project. But once she started focusing on a short list of words each week, she began to feel more relaxed. She even created a little notebook with weekly keyword lists. Each day, she recorded herself, listened, and corrected small mistakes. After a few weeks, her coworkers noticed a difference. She spoke more smoothly and didn't hesitate as much. All from 5 to 10 words a week. This is the beauty of focused practice. You don't need complicated tools or long hours. You just need consistency and awareness. Think about the kinds of words you use often at work, at school, or in casual conversation. Are there any that make you nervous when you say them? Add them to your list for the week. Pay close attention to how native speakers say them, on YouTube, in podcasts and movies. Try to imitate the sound. Record yourself. Compare, adjust, do it again. One more tip. Combine this technique with other methods we've talked about. For example, use your keyword list when doing shadowing. Pick a short scene from a show, find sentences that include your chosen words, and repeat along with the actors. You'll get even more exposure and practice. Or use the mirror technique. Say your keyword sentences while looking at your mouth. This helps you become more aware of how you shape each sound. And always remember, clarity is the goal, not perfection. Even if your accent stays, you'll be communicating more effectively because you're speaking with control and confidence. So this week, I challenge you to choose your first set of keyword pronunciation targets. Write them down, create a few short sentences for each, and start practicing every day. Just 10 minutes. You'll be surprised by how much progress you can make with such a simple but focused routine. Start where you are. Use the words you need most, and let your voice grow stronger one word at a time. Let's take a moment to talk about something that's very personal to anyone learning a new language: your accent. More specifically, how to live with it, how to grow with it, and most importantly, how to accept it. This is something I care deeply about because I know how hard we can be on ourselves when we hear our voice and it doesn't sound like what we imagined. Maybe you've already asked yourself, why do I still sound so foreign? Or, will I ever lose my accent? Or maybe you've even stayed quiet in conversations, not because you didn't know what to say, but because you didn't want to be judged for how you say it. If that's you, I want to tell you, your accent is not a flaw. It's a part of your journey. It's a sign that you are doing something brave, something most people never do. You're speaking in a language that is not your own. And that, in itself, is impressive. So let's start shifting the way we think about accents. Instead of seeing them as mistakes to erase, let's see them as stories we carry with us. Each one is different. Each one reflects where we come from, what we've experienced, and the effort we've put into learning. That said, I understand the struggle. It's normal to want to be understood clearly, and yes, sometimes accents do get in the way of communication. That's why we work on pronunciation, on rhythm, on intonation. We want to make our English more clear, more natural. But here's the important part. Clarity doesn't mean eliminating your accent. Clarity means being understood, being confident, being able to express yourself with ease. There's a big difference between wanting to be clear and wanting to sound exactly like a native speaker. I've met so many learners over the years who thought their accent was a problem. One of them was Anna, a nurse from Portugal who worked in London. She had a strong Portuguese accent and felt self-conscious every time she spoke with her colleagues. She told me she sometimes avoided speaking in meetings, even though she had good ideas, just because she didn't want anyone to hear her accent. That broke my heart. Because what she didn't realize was that her English was already very good, and her patients and co-workers could understand her perfectly well. It was only her internal voice telling her, "You're not good enough yet." When we worked together, on this, I encouraged her to listen to herself differently. Not with criticism, but with curiosity. To ask, "Am I being understood?" instead of, "Do I sound like them?" And guess what? Once she made that mental shift, everything started to change. She still worked on pronunciation, of course, especially with some vowel sounds and intonation, but her confidence grew much faster. Because now she wasn't trying to erase her identity. She was simply making her message more clear, while honoring the fact that her voice, accent included, is uniquely hers. I want you to think about this too. Ask yourself, what am I really trying to achieve with my English? Is it connection, communication, opportunities? Or am I chasing a version of perfection that may not even exist? Because here's something to consider. Native speakers also have accents. People from New York, London, Sydney, Dublin, Cape Town, they all sound different. There is no one correct English accent. And even within each country, there are regional differences, cultural expressions, and personal speaking styles. So why should your version of English be exactly the same as someone else's? Your accent is not a limitation. It's a layer, a part of your full voice, and sometimes it even becomes a strength. I remember a moment when I was traveling and met someone from Italy who spoke English with such confidence and joy. Even though his accent was strong, his energy made everyone want to talk to him. People were drawn in, not pushed away. He didn't try to hide where he came from. He brought it into the conversation. That's something I've seen over and over. When learners embrace their accent and focus on connection, their message becomes even more powerful. There's also a cultural element to this. Many of us were raised to believe that making mistakes is bad, that if we don't speak perfectly, we will be judged. And yes, sometimes people do judge. But most of the time, people are simply listening. They're trying to understand. They're curious. And they appreciate the effort it takes to communicate across languages. If someone ever mocks your accent, that says more about them than it does about you. Your accent is a sign of growth. You're expanding your world. That's something to be proud of. So what can you do, practically speaking, if you're struggling to accept your accent? First, start by recording your voice. Not to criticize it, but to get familiar with it. Notice the things you like. Maybe your tone is friendly or your voice has a natural warmth. Notice the areas where you want to improve, but approach them with kindness. Second, listen to other non-native speakers who speak confidently. Watch interviews, listen to podcasts, find examples of people who sound like you and are still making an impact. This helps you reframe what's normal. Third, talk to yourself in English. Use short phrases, affirmations, even daily reflections. The more you hear your own voice in English, the less foreign it will feel. And over time, you'll stop comparing it to others. You'll start owning it. Finally, focus on progress, not perfection. Work on the sounds that are most important for being understood. If your th sound or r sound causes confusion, practice it. But don't obsess over making it perfect. A small improvement can make a big difference. At the end of the day, language is about connection. It's about expressing your ideas, your feelings, your humor, your questions, your thoughts. It's about showing up in a conversation and saying, "This is who I am, and this is what I think." Your accent doesn't stop that. In fact, your accent carries all the languages and experiences that shaped you. It tells a story. Let it tell yours. Let me know when you're ready for the next topic. Let's take a moment to talk about one of the most powerful yet underestimated tools in language learning: repetition. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to speak more fluently and with clearer pronunciation, even if they haven't studied for as many years as others, one of the answers might surprise you. It's not always about how much you know, but how often you practice. Especially when it comes to pronunciation, repetition isn't just helpful, it's essential. Now, I know repetition might sound boring. Maybe it reminds you of drills in school, or exercises you didn't enjoy. But today, I want to invite you to look at repetition in a new way. Think of it not as a punishment, but as a tool to build confidence and automaticity. Your brain loves patterns, and the more often it hears and produces the same sounds, the faster it starts to recognize and reproduce them accurately. That's how fluency is built, through repeated exposure and practice, not through memorizing rules or obsessing over perfection. When you repeat a phrase out loud, something powerful happens. Your mouth, your tongue, your vocal cords, they all start learning where to go, what to do. This process is called muscle memory. Just like a dancer practices the same movement over and over until it becomes natural, or a musician repeats a melody until their fingers know exactly where to go, your mouth also needs repetition to learn the rhythms and sounds of English. Let's say you want to improve the way you pronounce the word through. At first, it might feel strange. The th sound might be hard. Your tongue might not know exactly where to sit. But if you say through out loud 10 times, 20 times, and then use it in short phrases like go through it or through the door, your mouth begins to adjust. The sound becomes less foreign, your voice becomes more confident. You start saying the word without even thinking about it. That is the magic of repetition. Daily repetition is key. It doesn't have to take hours. Even 5 to 10 minutes a day of focused practice can lead to noticeable changes over time. The important thing is consistency. Repetition tells your brain, this is important, let's make this easier. Your brain responds by building new neural connections. The more you repeat, the stronger those connections become. Eventually, you'll say certain phrases without hesitation. You'll sound more natural because your mouth has practiced the movement over and over again. I've seen this with so many learners. One student, Elisa from Argentina, struggled for years with her pronunciation. She thought she had to learn more vocabulary or study more grammar to fix it. But what really made the difference was a small routine she started. Every morning, she picked 3 phrases from a TV show she liked and repeated them 5 times each. She spoke them slowly at first, then at a natural pace, and finally with the same rhythm as the actor in the show. After a few months, her speaking flow changed completely. Her confidence went up, and she didn't hesitate as much when speaking with others. Repetition also gives you control. Instead of waiting for the perfect opportunity to practice in conversation, you take control by creating that opportunity every day. You repeat the phrases you want to master. You choose the sounds you want to improve. That makes a big difference, especially when you don't have many chances to speak English in daily life. Here's something you can try starting today. Choose 5 phrases that are useful in your daily routine. For example, how are you doing? I'll be there soon. That sounds great. Can you help me? Or, let's talk later. Say each phrase slowly, focusing on the pronunciation. Then say it again, a bit faster. Then again, at a natural speed. Repeat this a few times. Tomorrow, do the same thing. Over time, those phrases will become automatic. And the best part is, these are the kinds of sentences you'll actually use in real conversations. Another tip is to repeat phrases with rhythm. English has a natural rhythm and music to it. Try saying your sentences almost like you're singing them. Listen to how native speakers emphasize certain words and connect others. Mimic that. Even if it feels silly at first, it trains your ear and your muscles to follow the pattern. You can do this while walking, while cooking, or even while taking a shower. The more relaxed and frequent your practice, the better the results. You can also use shadowing, a technique we talked about earlier in this series. Listen to a short sentence and repeat it immediately, trying to match the tone, speed, and pronunciation. Do it again and again until your version sounds very close to what you heard. This type of repetition is extremely effective because it's active, not passive. You're not just listening, you're engaging your body and brain at the same time. It's also helpful to record yourself. Say a phrase 5 times and record it. Then listen. You might notice improvements from one repetition to the next. Maybe your 3rd attempt is clearer than the 1st. Maybe the 5th sounds more natural. These small changes matter. They show your progress in real time. And if you repeat this routine over several days, you'll be amazed at how much you've improved just by repeating a few phrases consistently. Remember, repetition doesn't mean mindless drilling. It means intentional, focused practice. It means saying the same words or sounds with the goal of mastering them. And because pronunciation is physical as well as mental, your body needs that repetition just like an athlete needs to practice movements over and over. That's how you build confidence and accuracy at the same time. You don't need to repeat hundreds of different things. In fact, it's more effective to focus on a small set of words or phrases and repeat them until they feel comfortable. Then, move on to the next group. Keep it simple. Keep it daily. Keep it focused. Over time, this repetition becomes the solid foundation for natural, confident speech. Let me know when you're ready for the next topic. Now it's time for something a little different. I want to challenge you, not with a difficult grammar test, not with memorizing long vocabulary lists, but with something that's entirely in your hands. After everything we've talked about in this episode, pronunciation techniques, inspiring stories, and practical tips, I'd love for you to take the next step. I want you to create your own pronunciation training routine. Not something long or complicated, just something simple, realistic, and personal. A routine that fits your life and helps you grow. Let's start with a question. Which of the techniques we've explored today made the most sense to you? Was it shadowing, where you listen and repeat immediately? Maybe it was the technique of using songs to practice natural pronunciation. Or perhaps you liked the idea of recording yourself and listening to your own voice. There's also the method of speaking in front of a mirror, focusing on mouth movement, or the focus training with 5 to 10 keywords per week. Whatever your answer is, that technique is your starting point. I want you to choose one technique. Just one. Don't worry about trying everything at once. In fact, the simpler your start, the more likely you'll stick with it. Think about your day. When do you have 5 minutes of quiet? Is it in the morning before breakfast, during a walk, in the evening after dinner? That 5-minute window is where your new routine begins. 5 minutes a day may not seem like much, but done consistently, it can lead to real improvement. And now let's think back to the people we met in this episode. Did you relate to Laura, the Brazilian teacher who was nervous about speaking in conferences? Maybe you felt like her. Smart, capable, but afraid of mispronouncing something important. Maybe you also write beautiful emails in English, but hesitate when speaking in public. If her story spoke to you, perhaps daily repetition of short phrases is the way to start. Laura chose difficult sounds and practiced them every day in a quiet, private way. You can do the same. Pick a sound that challenges you, like the or are, and say 5 phrases that include it every day for the next 5 days. Or maybe David's story caught your attention. He improved his pronunciation by watching sitcoms, listening carefully, and repeating lines. It wasn't a formal method, but it was consistent and fun. He turned entertainment into education. If David inspired you, your routine could include 10 minutes of watching your favorite series with English subtitles. Pick 2 or 3 sentences from each episode to repeat. Try saying them with the same rhythm and emotion. Use shadowing to mimic the characters. You'll start noticing changes in how natural your speech feels. And how about John, the learner who recorded his progress week after week? He wasn't afraid to make mistakes, and that courage made all the difference. He didn't wait to become perfect. He recorded, listened, learned, and repeated. He even laughed at himself when things went wrong. Maybe you're like John, ready to get started even if it's not perfect. You can use your phone to record yourself reading a short dialogue or a paragraph from a book. Save your recording, then listen to it. Do this every day for 5 days. Don't worry about sounding perfect. Focus on noticing your improvement. Or perhaps you connected with Hiroshi from Tokyo. His accent was strong, but when he shifted his focus to rhythm and intonation, everything changed. He learned to speak with clarity and expression, and suddenly, people understood him better. If rhythm and melody are what interest you, try this. Every day, choose one sentence and speak it with exaggerated intonation. Stretch the words, add pauses, play with speed. Do this 5 times in a row. It will feel strange at first, but it trains your ears and voice to connect more naturally. And let's not forget the music lovers among us. If songs move you, let them guide your pronunciation journey. Choose one slow, clear song in English. Listen closely to a single verse or chorus. Sing along. Focus on how each word sounds. You can even write down the lyrics and circle the parts that are tricky for you. Repeat that section until it flows. Music not only helps you with sounds, but also with stress, rhythm, and emotional expression. Whatever method you choose, remember that your challenge is to apply it every day for 5 days. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be long. What matters is the habit. 5 days, 5 minutes, one technique. That's it. At the end of those 5 days, take a moment to reflect. How do you feel? Did anything change? Did your mouth feel more confident? Did a word you struggled with finally sound a little clearer? These small wins are the foundation of progress. This challenge is about more than just practice. It's about ownership. You're not waiting for a teacher or a class. You're the one designing your path. You're deciding what to focus on, when to practice, and how to grow. That's powerful, and it's something you can continue beyond 5 days. Once the routine feels comfortable, build on it. Add another technique. Try a new sound, record a short story, watch a new show. Choose 5 new words for the week, make it your own. If you need a little structure, here's a simple outline you can follow for the next 5 days. Day 1. Choose your technique and prepare your materials. A video, a song, a list of phrases. Day 2. Start practicing and record yourself if possible. Day 3. Repeat the same content and try to improve a little. Day 4. Challenge yourself by speaking slightly faster or adding more emotion. Day 5. Reflect, repeat, and celebrate the habit you've started. And now, take a deep breath. Think about all the stories we've shared, all the techniques we've discussed, and ask yourself, which one feels right for me? What can I commit to starting today? This is your challenge, your journey. And I'll be right here cheering for you as you begin. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Seriously, it means a lot that you took time out of your day to focus on improving your English pronunciation. That shows commitment. That shows courage. And that shows you're already way ahead of where you might think you are. Sometimes we forget how powerful these small decisions are, deciding to listen, to learn, to try something new. So take a second to appreciate yourself. You showed up, and that matters more than anything. I want to remind you that pronunciation, like any skill, is not something you master overnight. It's not about talent or luck. It's about practice, patience, and persistence. You don't need to sound like a native speaker. You don't need to erase your accent. All you need is to be understood and to feel confident when you speak. Every time you open your mouth to say something in English, you're getting better. Every attempt is progress. Even the awkward ones, even the ones where you trip over the words. That's how growth happens. Maybe you've had moments when you felt frustrated, like your pronunciation would never improve. Maybe you compared yourself to others and thought, I'll never sound like that. But here's the truth. No one started speaking English perfectly. Not even native speakers. Everyone goes through stages of discomfort and doubt. But what makes the difference is not perfection. It's consistency. It's the willingness to keep going, to try again, and to keep your focus on communication, not correctness. Let's go back to all the stories we shared today. Think of Laura, who found the courage to speak at international conferences by practicing just a few sounds each day. Think of David, who used humor and sitcoms to transform his pronunciation naturally. Think of Hiroshi, who embraced his accent but mastered rhythm and intonation to speak more clearly. And John, who wasn't afraid of recording his voice even when he didn't like how it sounded in the beginning. These people weren't special. They were just like you. What they had was a reason to keep going. And you have one too. Your reason might be a job opportunity, a personal goal, or just the desire to express yourself more freely in English. Whatever it is, keep it close. Let it motivate you on the days when practice feels boring or when your progress seems slow. Because improvement doesn't come all at once. It comes in layers. It builds with every small step you take. And every single step counts. If today's episode helped you, here's something simple you can do. Share it with a friend. Maybe you know someone who's also learning English and struggling with pronunciation. Someone who feels stuck or self-conscious when they speak. Send them this episode. Invite them to join you. Learning is always better when we do it together. And chances are, if this helped you, it can help someone else too. Also, I'd love to hear from you. What part of this episode made you stop and think? Which technique are you going to try this week? Did one of the stories remind you of your own experience? You can message us or leave a comment wherever you're listening. We're a community here, and your voice is part of it. And remember, no matter where you are in your English journey, you're not alone. Every single person listening to this podcast has felt unsure at some point. Every one of us has had moments of doubt, but we keep showing up. We keep learning, we keep growing. Because English isn't just a language we study. It's a tool we use to connect, to dream, to work, to travel, and to tell our stories. So stay with us. Keep listening, keep practicing, and most of all, keep believing in your ability to improve. You're doing better than you think, and this is just the beginning. Continue with us here at the English Talk Community playlist. Your journey in English is just getting started.